Hello my friends, and welcome to the metal shop. Today a very cold day in the metal shop, cold rainy day, not even going to get to 60 degrees today. Good day to work inside. So we are going to address some performance issues with the Jeep YJ today, and I'll include in the description when the actual work starts. I'm going to give a little quick little, I don't know what you want to call it, a quick lesson, a quick dissertation on how we hop up the performance of these engines and some of the differences in engine management real quick. But I'll include in the description when the actual work starts for the jet performance module as stated in the title. Anyway, so I mean, you guys, anybody who's into cars at all knows, you know, how an engine works, and I hate, it's so cliche to say it, but I'm going to say it. Engine is just a big air pump. The more air you get in, the more air you get out, the more power you make. So even back in 1995, with this, you know, rather crude and simplistic engine and engine management, some of the best ways to make power are a cold air intake and a free air flowing exhaust. This Jeep has headers and a catback exhaust. Now that's great. Modern vehicles, I call those, you know, they're the big three that you do. You know, any vehicle you want to make, you know, easy, relatively cheap power, you put on a cold air intake, you put on an exhaust, a catback exhaust if you wish to remain legal, and a tune. You know, a handheld tuner, an SCT, a Hyperchips, or whatever tuner, and you reflash your engine control unit. The computer that controls your engine, you reflash it with a more aggressive tune to take care of more air that you're getting in and the more air that you're getting out. Now this, you know, being a 95, this is still a speed density managed system. You know, the ECU, whatever you want to call it, ECM, ECU, I call it an ECU, engine control unit, the computer, it's a speed density. And what speed density is it takes the RPM of the engine given by the tach signal, it takes the MAP signal, the manifold absolute pressure signal, which is, if you watched when I did the upgraded throttle body, this over here on this side, this sensor over here is the MAP sensor, the manifold absolute pressure sensor. So what speed density does is it takes the engine RPM, that MAP sensor, and it tells the computer how much fuel and what timing to administer based on those two inputs. And then you also have an oxygen sensor downstream in the exhaust that's kind of a check and a balance. It checks your work. It tells you how you're doing with how much fuel and how much time did I give, how did we do burning the gas, how much unburnt fuel is left in the oxygen, you know, the exhaust stream. It's a very good system. The only problem is that it's based completely on assumptions, okay? There's tables, there's fuel and timing mapping tables with the speed density system that basically, like I said, it's its best guess. Based on this engine's RPM, based on this manifold pressure, we should be giving this much fuel and this much timing for the best, and it's not even for the best power, it's for the most efficient. You know, you're talking about, it's a compromise. They're compromising for fuel efficiency, for drivability. It's not necessarily giving you the most power. But again, it's based on assumptions. What speed density does not take into account is when you make modifications. When it's really hot out, the air is much less dense, there's a lot less oxygen in the air, it doesn't take into account for that. When it's really cold out, that oxygen's super dense, that's great for power, the speed density doesn't take that into account. That's why all auto manufacturers switch to the mass airflow style engine management system. My Ford Mustang, which is an 89, is a mass airflow car. Jeep was much later. I believe they started with the TJs in 97, started with mass airflow. Every car manufactured today uses mass airflow. And what that does is there's a little electrode in stream in your air intake, and it measures exactly and precisely how much air is getting in to your engine. There's no guesswork involved. It is telling exactly how much air. And a nice side benefit of the mass airflow is colder air cools the element quicker, and so it can tell the difference between cold air and hot air. And anyway, the mass airflow is a much better, it's much more accepting of modifications. You put your cold air intake, your catback exhaust, your superchargers, your whatever, it's much more forgiving and accepting than speed density is. So what we're going to do today is, the jet power module is basically, it plugs in line between the factory harness and the ECU, which is located here. And what it does is it intercepts the signal from the ECU to all of the various, to the fuel injectors, to the timing, to the distributor and the timing and so on. It intercepts that and it changes the signal for much better performance, okay? So that all being said, all right, I'm gonna give a quick pause here and collect my thoughts. So let's have a look inside the Jet Performance Products power module and see what's inside the box. Now this is the stage 2 module for standard transmissions. They obviously make a different one for automatic transmissions, and this is the stage 2, which is made for outright a lot more performance than the stage 1, and I'll get into that briefly. So here we have the actual module that plugs in line between the factory harness and the ECU, and we have it's kind of a weather stripping, kind of a tar substance that we're going to use to wrap around the module, and we have an extension for the bolt here that holds the harness to the ECU. So I'm going to read right off of, so yeah, also not included in the box are instructions, again with no paper instructions. So you have to go online, but there are very good instructions available online. I'm going to read you their propaganda, their selling literature. The Jet Performance Module for Dodge, Chrysler, and Jeep vehicles is a Jet exclusive. Dynamic spectrum tuning provides power gains across the entire power band, not just at full throttle. Point-by-point air-fuel ratio, ignition advance, and various other tuning points provide performance gains of up to 25 horsepower. Improves throttle response, acceleration, and low-end torque. Simple plug-in installation in less than 30 minutes. Okay? This is stage 2. There's a little extra stuff with stage 2. I'll read that. Stage 2, designed for the performance enthusiast, the stage 2 features more aggressive programming to make the most horsepower and torque available. Fuel and timing curbs are extensively modified for peak performance and drivability. Requires use of 91 octane fuel, 180-degree thermostat, and free flow exhaust. Also works well with aftermarket intake systems, mass air sensors, TBI spacers, etc. So that's kind of weird. They're very non-committal and they're very ambiguous. They say a 180-degree thermostat is required, and they say that the catback exhaust is recommended, but they don't say required. So I guess the only thing that's absolutely required is that you change your right. I can't think of it. Thermostat, dummy. Your thermostat. Change your thermostat. So anyway, in preparation for this modification, it is an easy 30-minute bolt-on, but for the stage 2, I had to do a couple other things. I had the thermostat changed to a 180-degree Mishimoto racing thermostat that I showed you guys last week. Now, I had this done at a shop simply because the design of this engine, on a normal Chevy or Ford, this neck is on top like this, and it really doesn't require, you lose a little bit of fluid that's in this hose only. But this being located, it's a good 6-7 inches below the cap, below the radiator, and you have this hose, you have to drain a bunch of coolant. It's a pain in the butt. Anyway, I had it done. And it did take a gallon of antifreeze to refill the system after they did it. We're going to disconnect the negative battery. There's not a lot of instructions here. There really is not. I used a siphon and I took all the windshield washer fluid out of the bottle. I think you might be able to do this without removing this bottle, but it sure would not be easy. So this bottle is held in place with, I don't know if you can see down in there, there's like a little slide, a little tab and slide. And there is one bolt that's completely obscured back here, so I'll take out that bolt. We'll slide the washer bottle out of the way. We will disconnect the negative battery and then proceed. All right, so I pulled the washer bottle completely out of the way. There is just the one bolt and the sliding tab there. Two harnesses clip into it and two hoses, presumably one for the front washer fluid and one that goes to the rear. So that gives us nice access to the ECU wiring harness right here. 5/16 is the key, but by the way, it's a 5/16 bolt that holds the water jug in place, and it's also a 5/16 bolt that holds the wiring harness on. So the instructions again are very simple. Got them here on my phone. Remove the stock wiring harness by loosening the bolt in the center. Install the supplied bolt extension into the stock computer. Plug the jet module into the stock computer. Reinstall the factory wiring harness into the jet module and tighten down the bolt. Reinstall the battery or reconnect the battery. Start the vehicle. Verify that the service engine, check engine CEL light is not on. Drive the vehicle for a few miles and verify that everything is working properly. Wrap that insulation, that's that tar type of weather stripping, to make sure to press the tar tape around the module, making a tight seal. It says right on here the jet module is water resistant, not waterproof. To ensure the best seal, make sure you wrap the module entirely with the insulation. Do not pressure wash around the module. Now they obviously Jeep puts the ECU up here high to protect it from water. So pretty basic instructions. Pull your water bottle out of the way. We're going to unplug this module. I'm going to unscrew this. We're going to unplug this module and we are going to go from there. Stand by. All right, so the stock wiring harness is off, and there you see the bolt they're talking about. Mine is very nice and clean in there, if you can see. I am going to real quick grab a can of Verrier and just blow that out before I go putting everything back together. So let's stand by again. All right, so I've cleaned that out. I've installed the bolt standoff, and you can see how that works. The jet module is going to slide right over this standoff. The jet module is going to plug into the ECU, and then we're going to re-hook this right back into the jet module and screw that down tight. Now they give you all the warnings. Electrical part is non-refundable if this bag is open. Take good care taking this out and plugging it in. You can see all those tiny little posts. You want to take your time here with these connections and make sure that you get them right. I'm not going to film that. That's very precise and tedious work. So let's stand by again. All right, so we have the module installed in line right there. You can see it's a little shinier than the old plastic, and it took a good amount of pressure to push it in, don't force it, to push it into the ECU, and then I push the factory harness back on top of that, and then the bolt sucks it down nicely. It took up a little bit of space here. I'm not sure how well that water bottle is going to fit. It might be a little bit of an interference when we go to put that back in. So let's start this thing up and see how we did. All right, so we're behind the wheel. Apologize, it's a little dark. Got the hood. It's nice. It's all the way resting back up against the windshield here, which is a nice feature for the Jeep, giving me that extra room, especially right there under the cowl where we were working. So let's see how we did. Pray for no check engine light. So far, so good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to button this up, and we're going to take it for a drive around the block, make sure that there's no issues, and then we come back, we will wrap up the jet power module with the tar weather stripping adhesive tape. All right, cool. All right, so we went for a quick ride around the block and no drivability issues. Ran great. Check engine light did not come on. I did have to double check where the check engine light is on the instrument cluster. It is in, hard to see down here in this left-hand corner. I just wanted to double check because I put a piece of electrical tape over that stupid shift arrow. I wanted to make sure I hadn't covered up the check engine indicator. So, everything going good. I am ready to put that tar weather stripping tape around the jet performance module, and we're ready to button this up. So I'll stand by while I do that, and we'll close this out. Okay, so we have that tar tape wrapped securely around the module, making sure to press all the edges for a tight seal. They insist on a tight seal. Kind of funny, you know, it has their branding, their big flag logo sticking off the top of the module that we're then covering up with this tar. But I guess being, you know, nature of this vehicle being a Jeep, it, you know, can be off-roaded and get muddy and wet and everything else, so they have to take every precaution to make sure that the module is protected. So we're going to pop the water bottle back in here, the washer fluid bottle back in here. Hopefully that goes without any issues. So yeah, let's I'll put that back in before I wrap this up. All right, so the washer fluid bottle is back in. I will say that was probably a tad more difficult than actually putting the jet module in itself. Sorry that you can't see it anymore, but it's in there. Actually, it is a little bit snug. The washer bottle does kind of sit right up against this, but it actually provides just another physical barrier to prevent the harness from being unplugged from the ECU. Anyway, so success. If you're doing a stage 1 performance module, it is a simple bolt-on. You don't need to do anything else. You need to take out your washer bottle, you need to plug in the module, and you're done. Really no big deal. The same steps will apply. If you're doing the stage 2, it does require the thermostat. So there is that little bit of added work. It does recommend, which to me requires a catback exhaust. Honestly, I wouldn't do a stage 2 unless I did a, cold air intake and an exhaust as well. The reason for the thermostat I didn't get into is that when you change your fuel curve, your fuel mapping and your timing, what you're doing is you're making it leaner. A leaner mixture makes more power, but it also generates more heat. So that's why you need the thermostat. They figure with the increased performance timing and fuel mapping curves, they're going to generate more heat, so they want the thermostat to keep the engine at a cooler operating temperature. If you had your 190 degree thermostat in there, which is stock, with these curves, it could overheat. I guess that's the theory. Leaner fuel, more power. Richer, less power, but it's safer. It's more of that compromise that I spoke about at the beginning of the video. So overall, great project. I'll recommend. I'll do a more of a long-term update after I've lived with it for a while. Just that little ride around the block. I didn't really notice anything in the seat of the pants meter. I think I really have to drive it quite a bit to see. They say that with all of these improvements, you can see a 20 rear wheel horsepower gain. Now that's quite a bit when you're talking about a Jeep that has only 140 or 150 horse to start with. So anyway, cool little project for a rainy Saturday afternoon in the metal shop. I would highly recommend it. I paid $250 for this module from Quadratech. I'll include a link in the description. I did find it cheaper. There was some parts outlet that had it cheaper for $199. I'm not sure if that was the stage 2 module or not. You do your due diligence and shop around. No matter who you're buying it from, they ship it directly. It's shipped directly from Jet Performance out in California. They all state that. So anyway, awesome. As always, my friends, thank you for watching. I hope you like this video. Please give me a thumbs up. Please give me a share. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Check out all my other videos. Recommend me to your friends. All right, my friends, take care. Happy Jeeping. Awesome. Bye-bye.